sector, and we'll go from there. So 6-minute round, Mr. Kelly, you're up.
Well, thank you, and I'm going to start with the other Mr. Kelly on our call, and ask you to comment a little bit further on what your members are going through, particularly with the news today that was reported about the debt levels of small businesses. 175,000 average debt per small business is a staggering number, and the fact that a significant portion of this debt is not public aid money at low rates or forgivable. It's not bank debt at historically low rates, but in fact unpaid commitments that may threaten to bring down tens of thousands of these businesses. Could you comment on the details of what it means what this debt crisis among small business really means at ground level?
Yeah, thanks very much. And Pat Kelly is my grandfather's name too. So growing up in Manitoba, obviously not you. We are really, really worried though about the levels of debt that businesses are incurring. And as I was saying in my commentary, I think that there is a growing sense, and certainly the momentum in terms of getting government support programs amended and changed and fixed seems to be evaporating in government right now. I think there's a sense that we've got the supports in place, let's just keep them going for a little bit longer and then we'll be done. The economic damage that we've seen so far is a tiny, tiny portion of what we will be seeing in the days ahead. Even with a robust recovery and COVID coming to an end soon, reopening happening as is beginning to happen in most provinces, other than the terrible job the Ontario government has done. We're starting to see some signs of life, but I can tell you that businesses, when they reopen, they're going to be looking at their bills and their income in May and in June and the summer, and they'll be lucky to be able to pay their current expenses, let alone trying to make a dent in the $170,000 in COVID-related debt that they will have inherited. And all those bills for back rent, for inventory that they've either had to chuck in a restaurant setting or perhaps sell at fire sale prices in a retail setting, those costs have not gone away. They're not going to be forgiven in most circumstances. And there'll be an anchor around the neck of the business owner, dragging them under as the economy begins to recover, and we'll wonder what the heck went on.
Yeah, so you raised a point, and that is around the cracks in all of the various aid programs, and we've raised many of them, and right from the beginning, and the government responded to many of the problems that the opposition raised, and made many adjustments to things like CEBA and other programs, and yet there remain businesses that have fallen through the cracks. We all hear about it in our own ridings, yes. Especially businesses that were maybe brand new, about to open in March of 2020, having already drained all of their savings and expended all of their capital to get a business started. Could you comment on these specific failings? Here's a chance. You got the parliamentary secretary for finance on the call. Let's go ahead and tell the government what the problems are that with their aid programs.
Sure. Look, I agree with your assessment. The government has been moving to fix based on feedback in real time. I don't fault government for not getting these programs out. I do fault them for the slowness in some of them, but I don't fault them for not getting them all right the very first day. This is a new emergency, and there has been an open avenue and lots of dialogue happening, far more than was the case prior to the pandemic. But I will say that effort really has slowed. New businesses were promised by the Prime Minister in May of 2020, that they would be given access to government support programs, and there's not been a single movement on that to allow small firms to access CEBA, CERS, the wage subsidy, or HASCAP. Though that needs to change. So new businesses with $600,000 in investments to start up a restaurant. It came on stream in April, was shut down, opened for a couple of months, shut down again. They've been ineligible for every single one of the federal programs. And while there's been talk about fixing that, no action at all. There are other program failures. The rent subsidy, for example, just to raise a couple there. One of them is that one of the requirements is you as a business owner to use the rent subsidy have to pay your entire rent bill in order to apply, in order to use the program. So let's say your rent's $10,000 a month. The rent subsidy is going to deliver you $4,000. That's great. You're happy to get that. That'll help you address some of the gap. But if you don't have the $6,000 to pay your landlord, you cannot use the rent subsidy in its current structure. And we've raised this with government. Even landlords are saying, allow the tenant to get the $4,000 and pay me with that. It'll reduce the debt that they're experiencing. There's been no movement on that. Just yesterday, the government fixed a couple of small details of the rent subsidy, some of the problems that we were facing in terms of the comparator months, but a lot of gaps there. Wage subsidy, the same problems exist. The CEBA loan program, tons of businesses have slipped through the cracks. They're either too small, so the micro-sized businesses have been squeezed out. There is a list as long as my arm of businesses that unfortunately, while are anxious to get some of these useful programs, but cannot because the rules don't allow them to do that.
Thank you both.